The light of 1,000 candles does not erase a dark past. It only illuminates the ghosts. For Beatrice Davenport, the grand staircase at Lancaster House was not a symbol of triumph, but a climb back into the very inferno that had nearly destroyed her. 5 years ago, she had fled London as a ruined girl, her heart shattered by one man. Tonight, she returned as a wealthy widow, powerful and poised, her armor gleaming. But she knew, in the glittering throng below, he would be there. The Duke, the man who broke her, and she was terrifyingly unsure which would break first, his composure or her carefully constructed new life. London, 1851. The city was electric, giddy with the promise of the Great Exhibition. But tonight, the center of the universe was Lancaster House. The Sutherland Leveson Gower family had opened their opulent home for what was already being called the ball of the season. Carriages lined the mall, depositing a river of silk, diamonds, and societal ambition onto the pavement. From the window of her own carriage, Beatrice Davenport watched the procession, her gloved hands clenched so tightly her knuckles ached. "We are here, madam," her footman said, opening the door. Beatrice took a breath, steeling herself. She was no longer Beatrice Gresham, the 19-year-old daughter of a minor baron, trembling with hope and secret love. She was Mrs. Davenport, 24 years old, widow of the vastly wealthy and kindly, if elderly, shipping magnate, Marcus Davenport. Her mourning period was respectfully over. Her fortune was entirely her own. Her name commanded respect. But this was London, and he was London. She ascended the grand staircase, the whispers starting almost immediately. "Is that Beatrice Gresham?" "My dear, it's Mrs. Davenport now. Landed on her feet, didn't she? I thought she'd never show her face again. Not after." Beatrice kept her chin high, her gown of deep emerald velvet, a stark, sophisticated contrast to the pale silks of the debutantes. Her dark hair was coiled in an elegant chignon, adorned not with girlish flowers, but with a simple, tasteful diamond clasp. She was beautiful, yes, but it was a beauty forged in fire, her eyes holding a cool maturity that unnerved those who remembered the blushing girl. She entered the ballroom, a breathtaking sea of gold leaf, crimson damask, and glittering chandeliers. The orchestra was playing a vibrant waltz. She accepted a glass of champagne, her gaze scanning the room with practiced indifference. She saw faces she recognized. Lady Jersey, holding court in the corner, the bumbling Lord Cavendish, already too deep in his cups. She even saw the Prime Minister, Lord Palmerston, engaged in a heated discussion by the fireplace. It was all so familiar, yet so alien. She had been in this room for precisely 10 minutes when a voice, lower and warmer than the others, spoke at her side. "Mrs. Davenport, it is a genuine pleasure to see you in London again." Beatrice turned to find Lord Harrington, a man of 40, with kind eyes and a respectable title. He had been a peripheral acquaintance of her late husband and had made his intentions clear in a series of polite letters. He was safe. He was decent. "Lord Harrington, you are kind to say so," she replied, offering a small, controlled smile. "May I say, the city has been poorer for your absence," he said, bowing. "You are radiant. You are a flatterer, my lord." "Only an honest man," he insisted. He offered his arm. "Will you walk with me? Or perhaps a dance?" Beatrice was about to accept. A dance with Harrington would signal her re-entry into society on her own terms, when a sudden chill swept over the room. The laughter seemed to dim, the music to fade. It was not a physical change, but a shift in the air, a gravitational pull. She knew, even before she looked. Across the ballroom, Standing near the grand entrance to the terrace, he stood. Arthur St. Vincent, the Duke of Ashworth. He had not changed, and yet he had changed completely. He was still impossibly tall, his shoulders broad beneath the perfect cut of his black evening wear. His dark hair was still unruly, defying the fashion of the day, but the easy, roguish smile that had once captured her heart was gone. His face was a mask of aristocratic severity. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, were fixed on her. Time stopped. 5 years evaporated like morning mist. She was 19 again, hiding behind a tapestry, breathless as he stole a kiss. She was 19, reading his secret poems by candlelight. She was 19, standing in this very city, at Almack's assembly rooms, watching him destroy her. His gaze held hers, a physical weight across the expanse of the room. There was no recognition in his eyes, or perhaps there was only recognition, a deep, shocking acknowledgement of the ghost that had just walked into his life. Beside him, a woman draped in diamonds, with hair the color of spun gold, touched his arm. The Duchess. Lady Diana, the woman he had married. Arthur did not look at his wife. His eyes remained locked on Beatrice. Mrs. Davenport. Lord Harrington's voice sounded very far away. Are you quite well? Beatrice tore her gaze away, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Yes, my lord. Quite well. She forced her lips into a smile. I believe I would like that dance after all. She placed her hand on Harrington's arm, deliberately turning her back on the Duke of Ashworth. But she could feel his eyes on her still, burning into her spine. The armor was heavy, but she was discovering, to her horror, that it was not nearly thick enough. The waltz was a trial. Lord Harrington was a competent partner, guiding her with gentle courtesy. But Beatrice moved in a fog. Every neuron in her body was screaming, attuned to the presence of one man. She could feel him watching. She knew he was watching. You seem distracted, Mrs. Davenport, Harrington murmured, his brow furrowed with concern. Perhaps the heat of the room. It is merely my first ball in some time, Beatrice lied, forcing another smile. I am reacquainting myself with the atmosphere. Then we must ensure it is a pleasant reacquaintance, he said, ever the gentleman. As the music swelled to a close, Harrington bowed and escorted her toward the edge of the dance floor. And then it happened. The moment she had been dreading, the one she had been planning for, the one she was utterly unprepared for. He was there, blocking their path. Arthur, the Duke of Ashworth, stood before them, his face an unreadable sculpture. Beside him, his Duchess Diana watched with a bright, predatory curiosity. Harrington, the Duke said, his voice a low rumble that vibrated straight through Beatrice's bones. It was the voice that had once whispered her name in the moonlight. Now it was cold. Your Grace, Lord Harrington replied, bowing stiffly. Your Grace, he added, nodding to the Duchess. There was a terrible, stretched silence. The music started again, but no one moved. It was Arthur who broke it. His gaze shifted from Harrington and settled with crushing weight on Beatrice. It has been many years, Miss Gresham. The use of her maiden name was a deliberate cut, a reminder of who she had been, of her vulnerability. Lord Harrington cleared his throat. I believe you mean Mrs. Davenport, Your Grace. May I present Mrs. Beatrice Davenport? Arthur's eyes didn't flicker. My apologies. Mrs. Davenport, welcome back to London. Your Grace, Beatrice said. Her voice was steady. She thanked God for that. She would not shake. She would not cry. She would not give him the satisfaction. Duchess, She inclined her head to his wife. The Duchess Diana smiled, a razor-thin expression that did not reach her ice-blue eyes. "Mrs. Davenport, we were all so surprised to hear you had returned, after your rustic-ation." It was another cut, sharper this time. Rustic-ation. The word society used when a young lady was sent away in disgrace. "I find the country air agrees with me, Your Grace," Beatrice said coolly, "as I am sure my late husband did. But one must attend to business in the city eventually." "Ah, yes. Business," the Duchess said, her eyes sweeping over Beatrice's emerald gown and the modest but clearly expensive diamonds at her throat. "It seems you are a very astute student of business." The insinuation was clear. She was a fortune hunter, a commoner who had tricked an old man into a title and a fortune. Before Beatrice could reply, Lord Harrington stepped in. "Mrs. Davenport's stewardship of her late husband's estate has been remarkable. Many in the city, myself included, hold her acumen in high regard." The Duchess's smile tightened. She had not expected Beatrice to have a defender, especially one so prominent. But Beatrice's attention was fixed on Arthur. He had not spoken since his first greeting. He was simply watching her, his expression dark, his jaw tight. What was he thinking? Did he see the girl he had destroyed? Did he feel a single shred of remorse? Or was he, like his wife, simply measuring the woman who stood before him, calculating her new worth? "You must find the city much changed," Arthur said, his voice quiet, yet carrying over the music. "I find I am much changed, Your Grace," Beatrice retorted. "The city seems much the same. The same faces, the same houses, the same intrigues." It was a risk, a subtle challenge, and it hit its mark. A muscle feathered in his jaw. "Indeed," he said. He gave a curt nod. "Harrington, ma'am." He turned, and without a word to his wife, strode away, disappearing into the crowd heading for the card rooms. The Duchess Diana watched him go, her perfect smile faltering for a fraction of a second. A flash of pure venom crossed her features before she masked it, turning back to Beatrice. "My husband is preoccupied," she said, tapping her fan against her palm. "The burdens of a dukedom, you understand?" She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "A word of advice, Mrs. Davenport, from one who knows this city. Old ghosts are best left buried. Sometimes when one tries to dig them up, one finds the grave is already full, and there is always room for one more." It was a threat, a clear, unmistakable threat. The Duchess smiled once more, a brilliant, cold flash of white, and swept away, leaving Beatrice standing with Lord Harrington, the music of the waltz suddenly sounding like a funeral dirge. "A thoroughly unpleasant woman," Harrington muttered, offering his arm again. "Come, let us find you some champagne. You look as though you've seen a ghost." Beatrice took his arm, her hand trembling, now that the confrontation was over. "Or perhaps, your lordship," she whispered, "a monster." She let him lead her away, but her mind was not on the champagne. It was on the coldness in Arthur's eyes, and the far more frightening fire in his wife's. She had returned to London to prove she was no longer a victim. But she had a dreadful feeling she had just walked back into the very same trap. 5 years. It felt like a lifetime. Beatrice Gresham had been 19 in London for her first season, and utterly invisible. She was pretty, but not a diamond. Her dowry was modest. The great lords and their matchmaking mammas looked right through her. And then there was Arthur. He was not yet the Duke. He was Lord St. Vincent, the most sought-after heir in England, with a wicked smile and a reputation for breaking hearts. He shouldn't have noticed her. But he did. It started at a dreadful rout at Lady Spencer's. Beatrice had retreated to the library, overwhelmed by the noise, and found him there, reading poetry. Not Byron, but Keats. She had remarked, "I thought men like you only read ledgers or racing forms, my lord." He had looked up, and his smile had lit up the room. "And I thought women like you only concerned yourselves with finding a husband, Miss Gresham." "Then we are both mistaken," she'd said. Their courtship was a secret, whispered in stolen moments. Meetings in Hyde Park at dawn, pretending to walk their dogs. Brief, electrifying brushes of hands in a crowded ballroom. He would leave notes for her, tucked inside books at the lending library. He called her Bée, a name no one else used. He told her he was suffocating. He hated the pretense of the ton, the endless parade of simpering debutantes. He told her she was the first real person he had met in a decade. She, in turn, fell hopelessly, dangerously in love. She knew it was impossible. He was destined for a great marriage, one that would secure his family's vast and rumoured to be dwindling estates. She was just Beatrice. "It's not impossible," he insisted one rainy afternoon, sheltering in a small, forgotten pagoda at Kew Gardens. He took her face in his hands. "My father, the Duke, is a reasonable man. He wants my happiness, and you are my happiness, Bée. Arthur, be sensible." "I am," he said, and he kissed her. It was her first kiss, and it sealed her fate. "I will speak to him, I will tell him. I don't want Lady Diana. I don't want any of them, I want you." She believed him. She lived on that promise for 2 months. Then came the night of the ball at Almack's, the most exclusive club in London. To be seen there was to be made. Arthur had secured her a voucher, a miracle in itself. She wore a simple white dress, her heart flying. Tonight, she thought, he would dance with her. Tonight, it would all begin. She saw him the moment she arrived. He was standing with his father, the old Duke, and a woman she recognized as Lady Diana, a famously cold blonde beauty. Arthur looked pale, his jaw set. He saw her. Their eyes met across the room. She smiled, a small, nervous gesture. He looked right through her. He turned his back. Beatrice's breath hitched. "He's busy. He's with his father. He will come for me." She waited. 1 dance, 2, an hour. He danced with Lady Diana. He danced with her sister. He laughed with other men, procured punch for other women. He never once looked her way. She felt the blood drain from her face. The whispers had already begun. "That's the Gresham girl. They say she's been throwing herself at St. Vincent. How pathetic." She tried to catch his eye again, moving closer. He saw her approaching. His face hardened. He deliberately turned to Lord Cavendish and said, in a voice loud enough for her to hear, "My God, the hangers-on this season are becoming desperate. One can't move for them." The cut was so brutal, so public, it was like a physical blow. Tears, hot and shameful, pricked her eyes. She turned and fled. The next day, the announcement was in the Times. A marriage has been arranged between Lord Arthur St. Vincent, heir to the Dukedom of Ashworth, and Lady Diana Preston, daughter of the Earl of Malton. Beatrice did not leave her room for a week. Her father, a kind man humiliated by the gossip, was beside himself. Within a month, she was sent to the country, to a distant aunt. The season and her life was over. It was in the quiet, damp misery of the countryside that she met Marcus Davenport. He was 40 years her senior, a self-made man who owned a fleet of ships. He was visiting her aunt on business. He saw not a ruined girl, but a sharp, intelligent woman, drowning in shame. He offered her a bargain. "I have no heir, Miss Gresham, and I have no desire to spend my final years alone. I need a hostess, a companion, and someone I can trust to manage my affairs when I am gone. You need a name, security, and a way out. Marry me. I will ask nothing of you but your companionship and your loyalty. In return, I will give you the world." She accepted. It was not a marriage of passion, but it was one of deep, abiding respect. Marcus was kind, patient, and a brilliant teacher. He taught her about shipping, about ledgers, about investments. He treated her as a partner, not a possession. When he died peacefully of a heart ailment 2 years later, he left her everything. Beatrice had grieved for him. Truly, he had saved her. He had armed her. And now, standing in the Lancaster House ballroom, the armor he had given her was being tested. The man who had cut her so deeply he'd nearly bled her dry was just yards away. His presence, a toxic reminder of the naive, trusting girl she had been. She hated him. She hated him with a passion that had festered for 5 long years. And what terrified her most, as she watched him from across the room, was the agonizing, traitorous realization that part of her, the stupid, foolish, 19-year-old part, still loved him. The ball became a battlefield. Beatrice could feel the eyes of the ton upon her, watching the silent drama unfold. They were hungry for a scandal. Would the jilted girl, now a wealthy widow, make a scene? Would the Duke acknowledge her? Would the Duchess strike? Beatrice, remembering Diana's threat, chose to play the game. She was composed, engaging, and witty. She smiled at Lord Harrington's anecdotes. She discussed the new Crystal Palace with a surprising depth of knowledge, impressing a small circle of gentlemen. She was, to all outward appearances, the perfect model of a sophisticated, unbothered widow. She danced with Harrington again. She even danced with Lord Cavendish, who was now so drunk he was amusing. She was building a new reputation, brick by careful brick, right on top of the ruins of her old one. She was taking a moment's respite in a small alcove, fanning herself, when the Duchess found her. "You are enjoying yourself, it seems," Diana said, appearing at her side. Her blonde beauty was flawless, but up close, Beatrice could see the tightness around her mouth, the faint, stressed lines around her eyes. "It is a lovely ball, Your Grace," Beatrice said evenly. "My husband seems to think so. He has been in the card room for an hour. He often retreats when he is unsettled." Diana tapped her fan against her chin. "You have unsettled him, Mrs. Davenport." "I have done nothing but attend a party to which I was invited, Duchess." "Oh, please," Diana scoffed, dropping the pretense of politeness. "You walked in here wearing that dress, with that look in your eye. You are a statement, Mrs. Davenport, and I am here to tell you that I have read it, and I am not impressed. I am not here to impress you, Your Grace." "You are here for him," Diana hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You think because your little ship merchant died and left you a fortune, you can come back? You think you can reclaim what was never yours? You were a country nobody, a dalliance, and that is all you will ever be." Beatrice held her gaze. The girl from 5 years ago would have dissolved in tears. The woman she was now did not. "A dalliance?" Beatrice said, her voice dangerously soft. "Is that what he told you? And did you believe him?" "You must have, to be so secure in your marriage." Diana's eyes flashed. "My marriage is the envy of London." "Is it?" Beatrice asked. "You have his name. You have his ring. You stand beside him. But I watched you tonight. He does not look at you. He does not speak to you. He fled to the card room to escape you. You may be his Duchess, but you are not his wife. You are his jailer." It was a reckless, breathtaking gamble. Diana's face went white with fury. For a second, Beatrice thought the Duchess might actually strike her. You insolent, Diana sputtered. She raised her fan, and for a moment it hung in the air like an axe. Go on, Beatrice whispered. Do it. Cause a scene. Show all of London how insecure the great Duchess of Ashworth truly is. Show them that the little, rustic-ated nobody can threaten you with her mere presence. Diana's hand trembled. She lowered the fan, her chest heaving. You will regret this, she seethed. You think you are clever, with your new money. But I am the daughter of an earl. I am a duchess. I can destroy you with a word. You already tried 5 years ago, Beatrice said, her voice hollow. And look, I am still here. Now, if you will excuse me, Lord Harrington is waiting. She swept past the Duchess, leaving her fuming in the alcove. Beatrice did not look back. Her heart was pounding, but it was a different beat from before. It was not fear. It was victory. But as she rejoined the party, the victory felt hollow. She had won a battle of wits with Diana, but the war was with her own heart. She had seen Arthur's face. He was not the monster she had painted him to be. The coldness in his eyes hadn't been for her. It had been a mask of profound, crushing misery. She had told Diana he was a prisoner, and for the first time, she wondered if it was true. Lord Harrington met her by the terrace doors. You look as though you need air, Mrs. Davenport, he said, his kind face a balm. I do, she breathed. He led her out onto the terrace. The cool night air was a relief. The gardens of Lancaster House were dark and quiet, the music of the ball muted. Beatrice, if I may be so bold, Harrington began, taking her hand. You do not need to fight this battle. London is a cruel place. Your return, it has complications. I am an uncomplicated man. I have a modest estate in Kent. It is quiet. It is safe. I am offering you a respite, a permanent one. It was a proposal, not of passionate love, but of safety, of decency. It was everything her late husband had offered her. It was everything she should want. My lord, she began, deeply touched. Do not answer me now, he said quickly, but think on it. You do not have to stand in the fire. You can have a life of peace. Before she could respond, a dark figure stepped from the shadows at the far end of the terrace. She will never have peace, Arthur's voice cut through the night. Not as long as she is in London. Lord Harrington stiffened, moving to stand slightly in front of Beatrice. Your Grace, you are interrupting a private conversation. I am interrupting a fantasy, Arthur said, walking towards them. His face was stark white in the moonlight, his eyes burning. You cannot offer her peace, Harrington. No one can. That is not for you to say, Harrington said, his hand balling into a fist. Arthur, stop, Beatrice said, her voice shaking. You have no right. I have no rights at all, Arthur agreed, his voice rough with an emotion she couldn't name. But I will not stand by and watch this. Not again. He looked at Harrington. Leave us. Now. I will not leave Mrs. Davenport alone with you, Harrington stated. Yes, you will, Beatrice said quietly, placing a hand on Harrington's arm. He looked at her, shocked. Please, my lord, I must speak to him. Just for a moment. I will be perfectly safe. Harrington searched her face, saw the desperate resolve there. He looked at the Duke with open disgust. If you harm or distress her in any way, Ashworth, you will answer to me. I swear it. He bowed to Beatrice and retreated into the ballroom, leaving her alone on the terrace with the man who had ruined her life. The silence on the terrace was deafening. The distant waltz from the ballroom felt like it was from another world. Beatrice wrapped her arms around herself, the cool night air suddenly biting. "What do you want, Arthur?" she asked, her voice flat. "Have you come to apologize, or to warn me away, as your wife has already done so, eloquently?" He flinched, as if she'd struck him. "Diana spoke to you?" "She advised me that old ghosts are best left buried. She is very protective of her property." Arthur let out a harsh, bitter laugh that held no humor. "Property. Yes. That is what I am. That is what this title is. That is all I have been for 5 years." He walked to the stone balustrade and stared out over the dark gardens. "You hate me?" It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "Yes," Beatrice whispered, the word torn from her. "I do. You took my heart, my innocence, my reputation, and you crushed them. You humiliated me. You broke me. Why?" "Do you truly believe I did it for a title?" he asked, still not looking at her. "Do you think I wanted her?" "I don't know what to believe. I only know what you did. You looked at me, at Almack's, and you looked right through me. After everything you'd said. After Q." He finally turned to face her. His eyes were haunted, filled with a pain so profound it mirrored her own. "I did it," he said, his voice cracking, "to save you." Beatrice froze. "What? What did you say?" "To save you, Beatrice, and my family, and yours." "That's a lie," she breathed, shaking her head. "You married her for her money, for her father's connections." "That's what everyone said." "It was her father's money, yes," Arthur said, his voice raw, "but not for the reason you think. My father, the late Duke, he was not a careful man. He was a gambler, a terrible one. He died owing a fortune to one man, Diana's father, the Earl of Moulton." Beatrice stared, her mind struggling to comprehend. "Debts?" "Ruinous debts," Arthur said. "Moulton held notes that could have seized everything. Ashworth, the London house, all of it. He came to me the day after my father's funeral. He laid it all out. He wanted an alliance. He wanted his daughter to be a duchess. And you agreed?" Beatrice felt sick. "Of course not." Arthur slammed his fist on the stone. "I told him I would not. I told him I would sell the estates, pay him what I could. I told him I would go to America, to India. I didn't care. I would not be blackmailed. And I told him I was in love with someone else." A single tear tracked down Beatrice's cheek. "Me. You told him about me." Arthur nodded, his expression agonized. "And that was my mistake. Moulton is not just a creditor, Beatrice. He is a reptile. He investigated. He found out about your father." "My father? What did my father have to do with it?" "Your father had, years ago, entered into a shipping venture with mine. It failed. My father, to cover his own losses, used funds that were not his. He forged signatures, including your father's. He implicated him in a crime he never committed." Beatrice felt the blood rush from her head. "No, that's not possible." "Moulton had the proof," Arthur said, his voice low. "He had the forged documents. He gave me a choice, a very simple one. I could refuse his offer, in which case he would call in my father's debts, seizing Ashworth and leaving my mother and sisters homeless. And then, for good measure, he would release the forged documents, implicating your father in fraud. Your father, Beatrice, would have been arrested. He would have been sent to debtor's prison, or worse. Your family would have been utterly, irrevocably destroyed, ruined. Your name dragged through the mud forever." Beatrice sank onto a stone bench, her legs giving way. "Oh my God." "Or," Arthur continued, "I could marry Diana." He knelt before her, his hands clenched. "I had to choose. My family's honor, or yours. I chose to save you both. I agreed to the marriage. In return, Moulton would..." forgive my father's debts, and he would burn the evidence against yours. But at Almack's, she whispered, the memory still so sharp. You were so cruel. I had to be, he said, his own eyes filling. It was part of the bargain. Diana, she knew I loved you. She was jealous, pathologically so. She demanded I cut you. She demanded it be public. She said if I showed you even a moment's kindness, she would tell her father the deal was off. She watched me do it. She was standing not 10 feet away, smiling. He looked down, his shame a palpable thing. I thought if I was cruel enough, you would hate me. You would leave London, you would forget me, and you would be safe. Safe from Moulton, safe from Diana, safe from me. Hating me was the only way I could protect you. Beatrice looked at the man kneeling in front of her. The man she had hated for 5 years. The monster she had built in her mind. He was not a monster. He was a martyr. You sacrificed yourself, she breathed, for me, for my father. I would have done it 1,000 times, he whispered, to keep you safe. When I heard you had married Davenport, I was happy. He was a good man. I knew he would protect you, that he would give you the life I couldn't. He finally looked up, his face a landscape of 5 years of misery. But seeing you tonight, Beatrice, so strong, so beautiful, and seeing Harrington, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear you thinking. I couldn't bear you hating me for the one act of love I was ever allowed to give you. Beatrice was weeping now, silent tears streaming down her face. All the hate, all the anger, all the bitterness. It dissolved, leaving only a vast, aching chasm of sorrow for the time they had lost. She reached out a trembling hand and touched his face. Arthur. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch as a dying man leans toward water. You noble, beautiful fool, she wept. Why didn't you tell me? How could I? He asked. It would have put you in danger all over again. Their moment was shattered by a slow, deliberate clap from the doorway. Bravo, the Duchess Diana said, stepping out onto the terrace. Her face was a mask of pure fury. What a performance. Truly, the tragic hero, the weeping widow, it's almost believable. Arthur sprang to his feet, moving to stand in front of Beatrice, shielding her. Diana, go back inside. Oh, I think not, Diana said, her voice dangerously bright. I think I'll stay. I've been looking for you. Imagine my surprise, finding you on your knees before her. This does not concern you, Arthur said, his voice like ice. It all concerns me, she shrieked, her composure finally cracking. My father bought you for me. You are mine, and you will not dishonor me with this trash. Do not call her that, Arthur warned. I will call her what she is. Diana advanced on them. A little fortune hunter who, having bled one man dry, has returned to try and poach another's husband. Diana, I am warning you, Arthur growled. What will you do, Arthur? She mocked. Strike me? Divorce me? You can't. You have nothing. I have everything. My father holds the purse strings, and you know it. One word from me, and he will still ruin you. He will still find a way to ruin her. No, he won't, Beatrice said, stepping out from behind Arthur. Her tears were gone. Her eyes were clear and cold. Diana faltered, surprised. What? He has no power over me, Beatrice said. My late husband left me his entire fortune, Duchess. It is vast, far vaster, I suspect, than your father's. And it is all mine. I am one of the wealthiest women in England. I am not the frightened girl you and your father threatened into silence. Diana's eyes widened. She had known Beatrice was wealthy, but not that wealthy. And he has no power over my father, Beatrice continued, her voice rising in strength. My father passed away 2 years ago, peacefully, his name and reputation intact, thanks to Arthur's sacrifice. So you see, Duchess, your threats are empty. Diana looked from Beatrice to Arthur, her face pale. She was trapped. This changes nothing, she insisted, regaining her bravado. He is still my husband, and I will not be made a fool of. She turned toward the ballroom, raising her voice to be heard by the guests, who were now spilling out onto the terrace, drawn by the commotion. Lord Harrington was at the front, his face grim. "Ladies and gentlemen," Diana cried, projecting to the crowd, "please be careful. It seems Mrs. Davenport has returned to London to reclaim old, illicit affections. She has cornered my husband, attempting to lure him." A collective gasp went up from the crowd. This was it, the scandal they had been craving. Beatrice felt Arthur tense, ready to defend her, but she put a hand on his arm. "No, Arthur. Let me." Beatrice stepped forward into the light of the doorway. "It is true," she said, her voice clear and carrying. "The Duke and I, we knew each other 5 years ago. We were in love." More gasps. This was better than they could have imagined. "And I have been living in hatred for 5 years, Beatrice continued, because I believed he abandoned me for a title. I believed he was a cruel, heartless man." She turned and looked directly at Arthur. "I was wrong." She then turned her gaze back to Diana. "The Duke did not marry Lady Diana for her title. He married her to save his family from ruin. He married her to save my father from a debtor's prison, a fate he did not deserve, one orchestrated by her father, the Earl of Malton." The crowd erupted. "Blackmail!" someone shouted. "It's a lie!" Diana shrieked. "She's a liar! Tell them, Arthur. Tell them she's lying." Arthur stepped forward, his face etched with a terrible, weary resolve. He looked at the shocked faces of his peers. "I have lived a lie for 5 years," he said, his voice raison service. "I have worn this title, lived in this house, and stood by this woman. All of it. A sham. A bargain made with the devil." He looked at Diana, and for the first time, there was no fear, no resignation, only pity and contempt. "What Mrs. Davenport says is the truth. My father's debts, her father's peril, my marriage was the price of their safety. A price I paid, a price Beatrice paid, a price my wife has enjoyed exacting every single day for 5 years. The ton was frozen. This was ruin, public, magnificent ruin." Diana's face crumpled. This was not how it was supposed to happen. She was the Duchess. She held the power. But she looked at the faces of her peers, Lady Jersey's shocked expression, Lord Cavendish's sober stare. And she saw no allies. They were looking at her as if she were a snake. "He's lying. They're both lying." She tried one last time, but her voice was shrill, desperate. "Are we?" Beatrice asked softly. "Your Grace, why don't you tell them what you said to me, not half an hour ago? That old ghosts should be left buried? That there is always room for one more in the grave?" The audible gasp from the crowd was the final nail. That was not the language of an innocent wife. That was the language of a tyrant. Diana looked around, trapped. Her father would be furious. Her life was over. With a strangled sob, she turned and fled, pushing through the stunned crowd and vanishing into the house. A heavy silence descended. Arthur looked at the crowd. "My apologies for interrupting your evening." He then turned to Beatrice, ignoring everyone else. His eyes were clear, as if a great weight had been lifted from his soul. He offered her his arm. "Mrs. Davenport, May I escort you home?" Beatrice looked at Lord Harrington, who was standing nearby. He looked at the Duke, then at her. He saw the truth in her eyes. He nodded, a sad, respectful smile on his face, and stepped aside. Beatrice placed her hand on Arthur's arm. "Yes, Your Grace." "I believe you may." Together they walked through the parted sea of the most powerful people in London, leaving the ball and their past in shattered pieces behind them. The carriage ride to Portman Square was a journey through a void. The rattling of the wheels on the cobblestones and the rhythmic clip-clop of the horses were the only sounds, amplified by the suffocating silence within the cab. They sat opposite one another, two figures in the opulent darkness, separated by 5 years of pain and a gulf of unspoken words. Beatrice watched the city lights slide past the window, painting fleeting stripes of gold across the man opposite her. Arthur. He was no longer the cruel spectre of her memory, nor the dashing boy from the gardens at Kew. He was a man, real and flawed, who had just set his entire world on fire. For her, she saw him shift, his hands clenching and unclenching on his knees. He was vibrating with the aftershocks of his confession, the terror and relief of a prisoner who has just blasted a hole in his own cell wall, not yet knowing if he has found freedom or a new kind of ruin. Arthur kept his gaze fixed on the floor. He could feel her eyes on him. He didn't dare look up. To look at her was to be overwhelmed by the reality of what he had done. He had confessed. He had named the Earl of Malton a blackmailer. He had exposed his wife. He had, in the eyes of the ton, dishonored his own name. He had just performed social suicide, and he had done it in front of her. The one person whose opinion, after all these years, was the only one that mattered. He felt stripped bare, his shame and his sacrifice laid out for her to see. He felt unworthy to even breathe the same air. The carriage jolted over a deep rut, throwing them both forward. Their knees almost touched. Their eyes met in the darkness, a startled, profound connection that lasted only a second but held the weight of an eternity. In his eyes, she saw not a duke, but a refugee. In her eyes, he saw not a victim, but a survivor. They looked away, the air thicker than before. The carriage stopped. The street was silent, bathed in the cool, pre-dawn grey of a London morning. A footman, his face a mask of professional indifference, opened the door. Arthur stepped out, his movements stiff, and turned, offering her his hand. It was a gesture he had performed 1,000 times, but this one was different. He was not a duke escorting a lady. He was a man at the precipice. Beatrice placed her hand in his. His grip was strong, almost desperate, and very warm. He did not let go as he helped her down. He walked her to the heavy oak door of her townhome, their footsteps echoing in the empty square. He released her hand, and the loss of contact was a sudden chill. He stood before her, a tall, dark silhouette against the lightening sky. I should go," he said, his voice rough. "My presence here, it only taints you further." "Taints me?" she asked, her voice quiet. "After tonight, I think I am immune to taint. As are you." "Beatrice," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You don't understand the rules of this world. Your name was cleared, mine was destroyed. I am infamous. You should not be seen with me." "And what of you?" she countered, ignoring his protest. "What will you do now? Where will you go?" He gave a harsh, bitter laugh. "Diana will have already sent a message to her father. The Earl will be apoplectic. They will decamp to the continent, probably by nightfall. Paris, Rome, some place where his disgrace is not yet the talk of every salon. But it will follow them. As for me," he jested vaguely, "I am the Duke of Ashworth." I am bound to the title, and the title is bound to me. I will go to my empty house. The servants will whisper. My peers, the ones who watched, they will cut me. I am a pariah. I am the man who broke the code, who spoke the truth. In our world, they are the same sin. I am free, but I am utterly, completely alone. Beatrice watched him, her heart aching. This was the man who, to save her, had condemned himself to this very fate 5 years prior. You should go inside, he said, his voice softening. Write a note to Lord Harrington. He is a good man, a decent, honourable, safe man. He can give you the peace you deserve. He can protect you from this, from all of this, from men like me, who bring nothing but ruin. A man like you? She repeated, stepping closer. A man who sacrificed his entire life to save my father's name? A man who endured a living hell to protect me? A man who is now a disgraced outcast, he insisted, his voice raw. You keep speaking of safety and peace, Beatrice said, her voice finding a new strength. I had peace, Arthur. My late husband, Marcus, he gave me that. He was the kindest, most decent man I have ever known, save my father. He found me when I was broken, and he gave me security when I had none. He gave me respect. He taught me how to be strong. He gave me his name and his fortune, and I cherished him for it. I truly did. She paused, looking up at him, her eyes clear and resolute in the pale light. But our marriage. It was a quiet harbour. It was not the sea. I have lived in that harbour for 5 years, grieving, healing, and growing stronger. But I am not a creature of the harbour. I was not born for it. I want life, Arthur. I want the storm and the sun. I want everything. I have had enough of being safe. Arthur stared at her, his heart hammering. But I have nothing, he whispered, the words torn from him. Bea, you don't understand. The man you loved, the laughing, careless Lord St. Vincent. He died 5 years ago at Almack's. He died the moment I turned my back on you. This thing that is left. I am a hollow man, a duke with no honour, a man with no future. And the girl you loved? She shot back, her voice trembling. The naive, trusting, 19-year-old girl who believed in poetry? She died too. She was sent away in disgrace and had to bury her heart just to survive. She became a widow. She learned about shipping ledgers and profit margins. She learned how to be cold. She learned how to hate. She took another step, closing the distance between them until she could feel the heat radiating from his chest. We are both ghosts, Arthur. You are not a hollow man. You are a man who has been emptied. And I am a woman who has been walled off. But tonight, the wall just came down. She reached up, her gloved hand touching his cheek. He flinched, but didn't pull away. You are not a duke with no honour, she whispered. You are the most honourable man I have ever known. You say you have nothing to offer. What did you think I wanted? A title? I have a fortune vaster than your family's ever was. I have a name of my own. I don't need a duke. I need you. The man who reads Keats in a library. The man who whispered my name at Kew. He is still in there. I saw him tonight. His breath hitched. Bea, you told me once, she pressed on, her eyes shining with unshed tears, in a garden at Kew, that I was your happiness. Is that still true? He covered her hand with his own, turning his face to press a desperate kiss into her palm. It has never, he choked out, his voice breaking, stopped being true. It was the only truth in my entire, wretched life. Then come with me, she said. He looked up, confused. Come with you. Where? I have an estate in Sussex. It is not Ashworth. It is not a grand ducal seat. It's just a house by the sea. My late husband loved it. It's a place to breathe. There are no ballrooms. There are no prying eyes. There are no duchesses or earls. There is just the sea and the gardens and us. If you want it." He stared at her, the magnitude of her offer sinking in. She, Mrs. Davenport, was offering him, the Duke of Ashworth, sanctuary. The power dynamic, so skewed for so long, had just inverted. She was not the ruined girl. She was his savior. He had been a prisoner for so long, the open door was blinding. Beatrice. To be. Just Arthur, he stammered, the concept alien to him. Just Arthur, she confirmed, her smile small and watery. And I will be just Beatrice. Not Mrs. Davenport, the wealthy widow. Not Miss Gresham, the social outcast. Just Beatrice. A strangled sound, half sob, half laugh, escaped him. He pulled her to him, his arms wrapping around her waist, crushing her against him. He buried his face in her hair, inhaling the scent of her, the reality of her. He held her as if she were the only solid thing in a world that had just dissolved into mist. "Yes," he finally murmured against her skin, the word a vow. "Yes, God, yes, Bea, 1,000 times, yes." He pulled back just enough to frame her face with his hands. The sky was now a soft, pearlescent pink. The sun was rising. He looked at her, truly looked at her, not as a ghost of his past or a symbol of his pain, but as the woman who stood before him, offering him a future he never dreamed he could have. He lowered his head. Their first kiss, so long ago, had been the tentative, stolen passion of youth. This kiss, as the London dawn broke over the silent square, was something else entirely. It was the kiss of survivors. It was the sealing of a promise that had been broken, buried, and now resurrected. It was not a beginning, but a resumption. It was a homecoming. They would leave London. They would leave the whispers, the scandal, and the gilded cages behind. The Tun could have its drama, its rules, and its ruins. Arthur and Beatrice, two broken pieces made whole, were walking into their own light. And so, the grand ball that was meant to be Beatrice's return to society became her liberation from it. She and Arthur proved that a life built on lies, like the Duchess's, will inevitably crumble. But a love built on truth, even a truth hidden for 5 agonizing years, can withstand any storm and rebuild any ruin. They left behind the glittering, cold ballrooms of London for the quiet, true warmth of a life together, proving that the brightest futures are often found far from the spotlight, in the simple, honest light of a new dawn. What did you think of Beatrice's strength? Do you believe Arthur truly deserved a second chance? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This story was a reminder that true power isn't about titles or wealth, but about owning your truth. If you were touched by this story of love and hard-won redemption, please like this video and share it with someone who loves a story where the truth finally comes out. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another story of karma, love, and the incredible twists of real life. Thank you for listening.